All right, guys. Hey, welcome to another episode of Mediocre Dads, where being mediocre is a choice and you have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. I'm your host, Queon. I go by Q, of course. And on this episode of Mediocre Dads, I'm joined by a guest who, honestly, I was very excited that he said yes to. And so, similar to Perry, when I reached out to him on Instagram, I was a little hesitant because, it's like, I don't my following is still under the 1,000 range. And so, it's not to say people only respond based off of, how many followers you have, right? But I do understand you want to talk to so you want it to benefit you in some ways, right? And nonetheless, I won't get into that. It was awesome to see to hear from him respond, and he was more than happy to come on and kind of get on the show. So I'm excited for this episode. We're talking a little bit beforehand, and I was complaining, and then he told me what he does, and I was like, well, all right, it works out. It works out to because I was complaining that fit into the mold of what he does for his day to day, if you will. So I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna let it get right into it. But hey, Jason, it's good to have you on. Can you introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, I appreciate you having me, and I don't really put too much stock into the follower count thing. There's people talking good stuff with
Yeah.
barely any followers, and people talking a bunch of nonsense with millions of followers. So I don't put too much stock in that, but I do appreciate the invite. My
Yes.
name is Jason Lamar. I am a mindset coach. I'm not specifically a big fan of the title, but I have to call myself something, so it goes with that. But I help people change their perspectives, formulate good habits, and get out of their own way.
That's awesome. And so, what led you into that, right? Because, like, when I think about, when someone says, "Hey, I'm a coach," or I'm whatever the case might be, there's sometimes when I'm sure you've met them, right? People say, "I'm a coach," and you're like, "What do you coach people on?" You know what I mean? Like, like you just gotta be like, "Huh." Are you sure that's your calling? But like, I'm not to say that's for you, not you necessarily, but just in general.
Mm-hmm.
So what led you to that decision to say, hey, like this is definitely where I feel my passion or my calling is?
Oh man, it's a so I've done a lot of different jobs throughout my life, mostly sales, mostly legal, probably if I had to put a ratio to it. But I found that regardless of what it was that I was doing, I wasn't happy where I was, regardless of how much money I was making or what specifically the job was. And one day I took a look back, self-reflected, and realized that I was the reason that I wasn't happy with all of that stuff, excuse me, because I was the common denominator throughout it. I stumbled across some people on Instagram who were doing the coaching thing, and I thought this is something that I could see myself doing. I'd like to be able to make a difference, to actually help some people out. I think there's very few people in the world who can say that they have actually played some sort of role in actually changing people's lives. So I like to think that I am one of them.
Hmm. That's I think that's a big deal, right? So like I know I'm sure a lot of people initially when they start, and as you mentioned beforehand, right? There's a lot of people with millions of followers who are not saying anything at all, really, right? And I'm sure initially they were like, "Hey, I'm here to help people," but like then after a while, it just kind of you can see the taper offing point, right? Where it's just like you're just doing things for the sake of doing things. And what I would say, what I like about your content is every video that I watch, I think about things very logically. In every video I watch, I'm like, this makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense. Right? He's not saying anything wrong. If people would listen, right? And I tell my daughters all the time, slow down, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Meaning, hey, slow down, listen to what I'm telling you, right? Because I promise you're missing something when I'm trying to the message I'm trying to relay to you. And if people would actually slow down and listen, the information you're giving, it's very simple, realistic, information. But reading some of the comments, reading what some of the people say, I'm like, you just don't like what he has to say, and it's baffling because wasn't targeting anybody, wasn't pinpointing at anybody specifically. If you were, maybe I don't know, but like it definitely doesn't seem that way, right? Like, right? It's weird to me that people wouldn't want to receive some positive feedback or some feedback to say, hey, like, listen, you're not perfect, I'm not perfect, but like this is to help you to get you to change your mindset, right? Because so many of us get stuck in that complain, 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 complain. My life is miserable. My life is miserable, and I'm going to complain. And somebody to tell me that, you know, maybe some of my problems are caused by my decisions and my attitude. is like a sucker punch to them. Like, how dare you? No, no, no. It's everybody else's fault around me. So I'm sure, I imagine so that there have been some people who are very receptive and some people who have not been receptive to you. From the side of people who haven't been receptive to some of the things that you say and whatnot, what is it mostly about? Is it like, hey, you're attacking me, or is it just they just don't care?
So the people who aren't receptive kind of generally fall into the category of you don't understand this, or you don't understand that my childhood was hard, or my parents are alcoholics, or I'm depressed because I don't know, my wife died last week or something, and there's absolutely nothing that I can do about this. I want to be better in life, but I can't because I'm only 5'2", or I'm a woman, or whatever the case may be. Some random thing along those lines. So they want to make excuses to feel better about where they are not in life, and disregard what it is that I'm saying, because at the core of my message is exactly what you said, is an accountability thing. If you're not where you want to be, you've played some sort of role in that. And the degree to which some of the things people defend being true isn't of the utmost relevance. I say all the time that being depressed is a choice because it is a byproduct of your actions, how it is that you are living life. You're disregarding something that you know that you should be doing. And people want to dispute me and they say, no, it's a disorder, it's a disease, whatever the case may be. Even if that's true, it doesn't really help you to believe that that's the case, because you're always going to have, you boxed yourself in with this belief as I can only do A because B. So you always have this little block there. The same thing with the people who think that they can't get ahead in life because they're a woman and they're trying to get a job somewhere, or they're black so nobody wants to hire them, whatever the case may be. So it prevents you from having to go and self-reflect. And if you go to a job interview and you believe that the reason that no one hired you is because you were black, it takes the onus off of you, and there's nothing that you can do about that. So you're just a victim to what is going on around you, to some sort of immutable characteristics about yourself. Whereas if you want to take it and self-reflect and say, okay, I could have spoken better, I could have dressed better, I could have showed up on time, I could have become more prepared for this, I could have asked better questions, I could have articulated myself better, I could improve my vocabulary, I could have better hygiene. Who knows? There was always something that you could have done better, because the fact of the matter is, whatever situation that you are in currently, there is someone else who has dealt with the same hurdles and overcome it. So if someone else can beat the depression, if someone else can defeat the patriarchy, or whatever the case may be, you can as well. And they found a way to do it. And the way that they found to do it was not about complaining about it until things just got better for them.
I love that. Man, I love that so much. And I'll tell you why I love that, right? So we were talking a little bit beforehand. I was telling you kind of about some of my soldiers, and they are the younger. I say my soldiers. When I say soldiers, I truthfully mean the younger folks, the younger soldiers that I have, and that I'm in charge of. And one of the common denominators throughout all of everything that they experience, and it requires me to address it, is the accountability piece. They refuse to understand the role that they played in getting to the point where I'm having to, whether it's negatively counsel them, or whether it's to have call in my office and have a stern conversation with them, or correct them in any way. Right? They hate the accountability piece, and it bothers me a lot, because I'm like, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to be accountable. I don't understand why it's not important, why you wouldn't want to be able to say, okay, this is what I did, this is the role I played in this, and I'm here because of my actions, my decisions. Right? Like, no one else, right, unless they literally have a gun to your head, directs your steps every single day and says you will make this decision or else. Right? No one else. Very few people. If that's reality for some people, I'm sorry, right? But like, very few people living in reality, that is not happening. You are making those decisions based off of what you believe to be true or correct, and it's amazing that when you're standing there in front of them and said, hey, okay, just make it make sense to me. Why did you feel like this was the appropriate thing to do at this time, and which led to this? Well, actually, if this person wouldn't have told me this thing, then I wouldn't have done that. So actually, it's not my fault, it's that person's fault, because that information is what led to me getting angry and getting upset. So actually, you should be talking to them and not talking to me. And it's like, sure, I can do that. However, what about you? You're the one who reacted the way they react. You can control the way you react, just like that person can control what they said. but you can control the way you react, and you refuse to do that. And it's just, man, I love this conversation because I'm passionate about accountability. Have you ever read David Goggins' book Can't Hurt Me?
No, but I'm familiar with it.
Okay, so one of my favorite things within that book, and I tell people all the time, is like, hey, ultimately the whole book's about him becoming Navy SEAL and then running a bunch, and then why he is the way he is now, right? Like, you read it. I think it's a good read, but don't stress yourself if you don't read the book. But one of my favorite things within that book is he has what's called accountability mirror, and he would write on that. He would write on his mirror where things and places he needed to hold himself accountable, and to make sure he was holding himself accountable. So it was, I need to lose 50 pounds. So every morning when he woke up and he was washing his face, going to the bathroom, whatever, looking in the mirror, it was clear in front of him, clear as day. Like, hey, I told myself that I need to lose 50 pounds. What am I going to do today to work towards that goal? Whether it's even if it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, what am I going to do to ensure that I'm accomplishing this goal and I'm holding myself accountable? And I tell people all the time, it's like, I love that idea because when you have something, one, written down, and two, in front of you like that every morning where you see it, after a while, even if you're not doing it, after a while, you're gonna start feeling bad. You're gonna be like, I'm falling behind. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to. I need to get on this. I need to do this. So, like, I love that idea. I love I loved it so much, and that's the key thing for me that I took from the book was the accountability mirror. So for you have, I'm sure you have a plethora of clients, and they're doing their different things. What have you found to be the most difficult when you get a new client? Right, because I mean, not everybody shows up, I'm sure, ready to take some,
Yeah, and it's actually exactly what it is that you said that you struggle with your soldiers, or the younger ones at the very least, and it's the accountability thing. I find that much like you said, that's what most people have the most problem with. And I wish that I could say I don't understand the impulse. I understand why it feels better to say that I did this because of this person, or I did this because of this person. I mean, you do it since you're a kid, right? Your parents get mad at you for something. It's like, well, it's because of this. Right, so that's your first impulse, I guess, to kind of get you out of trouble. But getting in trouble as an adult is you not being where you were supposed to be in life. It's you being out of shape. It's you being broke. It's you having shitty relationships. It's you getting arrested. It's whatever the case may be. That's your version of trouble as an adult. So people's natural impulse is to blame it on something else. Like I talk to people who want to lose weight, and people want to talk about their eating disorders. And I have this eating disorder because when I was a kid, my mother rewarded me with food when I did something good. So now I have an unhealthy relationship with food, and it's because of this. And at the end of the day, no, it's not. It's because you chose to eat the food. Maybe that happened to you when you were a kid, and I understand that you don't have full control over what happened to your childhood. But once you become an adult, all of that changes, and you chose to continue taking on these actions. And the same thing that people like to blame their generational curses, or they grew up poor, or whatever the case may be, so they never learned how money worked, or how to do this or how to do that. But it is still you who chose to continue on doing that. And I understand why that sucks, to take a look at your life and say, my life sucks because I have fucked it up. I understand why that's unpleasant for most people. But at the end of the day, it's also the most empowering thing to say, I am the one who fucked up my life. And because no one else put you where it is that you are, that means you put yourself there. And if you put yourself there, you could put yourself somewhere else. No one pulled your strings and made you do a thing. No one controls your reactions but you. Yes, someone yelled at you, but that's not the reason that you hit them. You chose to respond to them by hitting them. It's not because of them. At the end of the day, all of it boils down to your own choices. And if you could get people to accept that whatever they have done, or wherever it is they are, is a product of the choices that they make, then you could get them to start making better choices. At the end of the day, your choices are the biggest deciding factor of where it is that you are in life, or where it is that you are going to go in life.
I love it. I love it because I would just like to say you would make an amazing non-commissioned officer, because everything that you say is what I tell my soldiers all the time, and in a different way, right? But like, it's still, nonetheless, it's the same message, and it is it's not received well from when they hear from me. I do have that. I think it's the dadism in me, where because I'm a dad, in how I convey, how I articulate things and put things, I think it come for them. It feels like they're being yelled at or talked at by their dad, and I'm like, I don't do it on purpose. This is just something that you learn over time with being a dad, and so it's like, it's not to don't replace your dad by any means, but it's just simply to let you know. And because I used to be the person that would correct by yelling, and a lot in the military, that's what we do. Or that was what kind of that was the custom, if you will. Of we need to yell to get our point across, and that's what determines you're a good leader. But in reality, it was okay. Is there a better way? If I talk just like this, how I'm talking right now, can I convey the same message? And I learned, I was like, I can. And I would prefer to do it this way because it goes to what you said. I can control how I react to someone yelling at me. I could say, you know what? I'm going to punch you in the mouth because you yelled at me because I didn't like it, and then like how you said it. And I didn't like how you raised your voice at me. Or I could, nod my head, acknowledge, seek understanding to what they're saying, acknowledge that, hey, I played a role in this, and then time and place permitted, say, okay, I understand, I appreciate that. I said, this is and this part is on me. I totally take responsibility for that. And not, how can I get better? Where can I go from here? What do we need to do? What do I need to change? What do I need to correct so I can be better and I can do better? Because I want to be good at what I do, and whatever the case might be. And so you said something, and it took a little bit for it to set in, but you mentioned that people are not, how you should put it. You said you choose to be depressed, and I, it's crazy. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I have a hard time articulating that to people because a lot of times, and within the military especially, there are a lot of people who have mental health concerns, and such as depression. But I don't know how to articulate to them, like, hey, I get that you saying that you have a depression disorder, but like, aren't you only pigeonhole yourself to respond and to bad news, good news, or whatever, or half news, only a certain way? So like, like, it's one thing to say I have depression, but it's a whole other thing to say, like, I have depression, but like, that doesn't mean that I can't be a happy person. Because every time I meet a depressed person, they're always, you could give them, hey man, you're a millionaire now. You've won the lottery. You're a millionaire, and it's, well, I have depression, and I just, I'm just sad all the time. I just feel down. I don't know. I've never been taught how to manage my emotions, and so now I can't. I don't know how to receive that. I don't know how to accept that, and it's like, isn't that miserable? Isn't that just miserable all the time? Like, what? Like, your just life is just miserable. You want $1,000,000 and you're like still miserable. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand that. So have you had to drop clients because, like, hey, like, you're not, it's just, maybe the message is just like, hey, you're not receiving this, and it's clearly, you're here to just complain, and I would rather help you and not have you waste your money, rather than just come here if you complain and then not receive any of the direction I'm trying to guide you in.
So, as a general rule in life, I don't participate in any degree of negativity, whether you want to complain about some case may be, because it's not only is it not useful, but it's also contagious, and that gets on you whenever people are just bringing all of their dreary ass energy around and everything is a problem. It's exactly like you said. When people are depressed, they're going to be depressed about anything. Negative people find issues with everything. They find problems with solutions. It doesn't matter what it is that's going on. They have decided that they are unlucky. They have decided that the world is bad. They have decided that things don't go in their favor. So that's how everything is going to be, because that's the lens that you're viewing the world through. So that's what everything looks like. You put on blue glasses, everything is fucking blue. You put on your depression goggles, and everything is depressing, no matter what it is, because that's what you're looking for. So you're seeking it out and you are finding it. So I don't participate in that, and I don't, whether that's clients, whether that's personal relationships, or whatever the case may be, it is not something that I want to have around me. I've worked very hard on my perspective. I used to be a pretty negative person myself. I used to think that I was unlucky and all of that. I've worked very hard to get past that, so I don't let anybody threaten that in any degree. But as far as like actually dropping a client, no, you'd be surprised at the amount of people who like sign up for things and just never do anything with it. I think people like to feel like they've taken the step of signing up for something because they want to better themselves. They just don't actually want to do it. It's kind of like the Planet Fitness business model, where they have like 40,000 active members at every location, but like 1,000 of them just use it. But people feel good about having the gym membership, and it's not cost prohibitive enough for them to go out of their way to cancel it. So they just have like a bunch of recurring charges every single month for people who have absolutely zero intention of ever coming to the gym. But I find that a lot of people like the idea of taking the steps towards something more so than they like actually doing the things. Like people will go watch a bunch of business podcasts and then feel like they've done something even though they haven't started a business, or they'll go and read a bunch of workout books or blogs or whatever the case may be, but never actually go to the gym, because all of those things feel like they're doing something. And at the end of the day, that's all most people want, is to feel good about stuff. And to go back to the depression things, that's one of the reasons that it winds up being a problem, is because for some reason a bunch of people have gotten it into their head that they're supposed to feel good all of the time, no matter what, just for the fuck of it.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime they're not feeling good, they think that there's something wrong with them. And then you have a bunch of people marketing drugs and shit saying, well, if you're feeling sad, there's something wrong. And nobody wants to be sad, but they also don't want to do the work to not be sad. So they adopt the idea that something is wrong with them because the pill makes them feel happy, not realizing that they are solving the wrong problem. Like the feeling that they're having isn't the problem. What's causing the feeling is the problem. The depression is the fire alarm in their house, and they're focused on the fact that there's beeping rather than the fact that their house is burning down. So they want to go pull the batteries out of the shit so they don't have to listen to the noise anymore, but their house is still on fire.
That is amazing. One thing Perry did tell me, he goes, hey man, if you want a guy on your podcast that he goes, when he articulates things to you, he puts it in a way where he goes, you never thought about it before, but like when he says it, you're like, that makes total complete sense. And like literally, you said it, the analogy, I was like, that makes total sense. Like I didn't know it was gonna make sense when you started, but like it makes total sense. And I'm like, wow, that is amazing. It's amazing. You know what? And I think you are. I will say this, and just maybe this me personally, and I'm sure all your clients would agree. I think you are in that right calling, because you definitely have a way with words and a way with people to make them think differently. Because within the 20 minutes we've been talking, I have been thinking to myself like, I need to change the way I think, because I am, I will say it naturally, I am a negative person. I don't enjoy that, right? And this is not a counseling session for Queon, but I don't enjoy being overly negative. So I do strive to find things that make me happy, such as doing a podcast, having a conversation with someone else, and kind of thinking out my thought, or talking out my thoughts, if you will. And so it's amazing what happens with that, and I'm really blessed for me to have this platform that I have to do so. So when you said you don't allow that negativity to come around, or you don't like people who complain or negative. I won't put words in your mouth, but more or less, right? Like, it's the negativity is a lot. There's a lot of people who are just overly negative for no reason. And so were you always that way? Where you're just like, hey, always find the sound, I guess, pessimistic, where you can always find the good in situations? Or is it you're just like, hey, I may be angry, I may be upset, but like, how do I I can control how I react in this situation. What do I need to do to better myself? Right? How does that work for you personally?
Like, how do I view situations, I guess?
Yeah, like, because you mentioned that you've worked very hard to not be to get away from that negative mindset and that negativity that people that whether it's yourself or other people around you who want to be overly negative. How do you manage that? How did you get to where you are today, where it's like, hey, like, there's negative things. You're not happy 24/7, I imagine, but still you're able to say, hey, all right, hold on, this is what I need to do.
Well, it all starts to me with a perspective on stuff, because even the idea, like, when I say negative things, I'm talking about people complaining or people labeling things as negative, right?
Right.
Because
right.
if you look at a very base level, everything just is. You could take any scenario that you want, and it just is, until you've decided that it was bad. Some people hate the rain, some people love the rain. Therefore, the rain is neither good nor bad. It just is. It's what you decide it to be. It's how it is that you choose to view it. And every time I say that, people take these extreme examples to try and make some sort of point. But we could even go that far. Cool. So 50 Cent got shot 9 times. Worked out great for him, made him millions of dollars. And I don't think that he would go back and say me getting shot was a bad thing because of where it led. Some people would say it was bad. That's cool. That's fine. But it was good for some people. It's bad for others. Therefore, it's neither. It just is. It's all in how it is that you choose to view it. So once something happens, it has happened. There's nothing that you could do to make it no longer happen. If I go outside, I pull out of my driveway, I get a flat tire, my tire's flat. Me being upset about that isn't going to put the fucking air back in my tire. Me being upset about that isn't going to take the screw out of my tire. I have to go get a new tire. I mean, I guess I could just leave my car there and go do some other shit. But either way, my tire's flat, no matter what I do about it. So why have a flat tire and be mad? Like, that's just two things that are unpleasant now. So you can, once something has happened, all you have is how you proceed with it and how it is that you choose to view it. So I could take the same flat tire and say, okay, well, my day's fucked up now. Or, cool, this is a thing that I was not expecting. This is a thing that I can overcome. And this is an opportunity for me to practice what it is that I always preach. This is an inconvenient thing. Everyone would understand that if I complained about this. However, I'm choosing it to view it as a good thing. It's a challenge for me, and it reinforces my belief that I refuse to label anything as bad.
Gosh, I love that, man. I love it every single time. Oh man, I love it. I really do. I genuinely, when I say I genuinely do, I do love it because, you know, we overcomplicate, our happiness. Like wholeheartedly, we overcomplicate our happiness to where it's like, okay, yeah, I got a flat tire, and for me personally, within me being in the Army, and it's inconvenient, sure. But then I think to myself, like, okay, I have a spare tire under I drive a truck. All right. And so it's like, it's a 35-inch tire. It's a big tire, but guess what? I'm a pretty strong dude. And yeah, it's inconvenient. Yeah, it sucks. I don't want to do it. But I mean, the challenge, and that's one thing that I did appreciate what you said, especially is the challenge that comes with it. Like, okay, I get to challenge myself. I get to say, all right, hey, this inconvenient thing happened. But now I get to make sure and reaffirm I know how to change a tire. Right? I know I need to make sure I know how to change. Like, to all my dads out there, right? We in our heads understand how to change a tire. But when was the last time you changed a tire? And I'm using your analogy because I wholeheartedly, like, it's one of the simplest things that could happen to us life, but we get so pissed off about. Someone cuts us off in traffic, right? We can't control that other person. It already happened.
Furious.
Like I get angry all the time. And I'm in San Antonio on the 35. If you're in Texas or you've been to Texas, the 35 is one of the most miserable highways ever because all they do is construction on it. And so I get upset and this person sucks, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, like, it's already happened. And 9 times out of 10, I pass them, and then what? Like, do I just like make it ruin my entire day because it's this one person? I have no idea who it is, who is in their car doing something, God knows what. Like what am I going to really get upset for, and just live in that constant state of just, this has ruined my whole entire day. And I love it because you make it simple. You put it in such simplistic way that people were like, huh. That's a really simple way to think about it. And I don't understand why I was never thinking about it that way before. What taught us to react the way that we react to bad things happening to us, or whatever the things happen to us? That's what I'm curious. I don't know if you necessarily have an answer, but like, have you ever pondered this kind of like, what taught us or anybody to react so overly negative to a lot of these situations that happen to us in our life?
I think so this is a theory that I'm kind of going with off the top of my head since you asked the question. But I think that it feels good to complain about stuff. Like, you ever hear people, they say they just want to vent. They don't want their problem solved. They just want to vent because it feels good to get it off of their chest, right? Yeah. And you get a small little hit of dopamine whenever you complain and you vent about something. You're just getting out your feelings, and it feels really good. But what that does then subconsciously is it creates the habit of just complaining about stuff. So you complain about stuff to feel better about stuff. And what you have also done is now normalize just feeling better from venting without actually doing anything to solve your problems. So you're getting these little dopamine hits from just complaining about whatever it is that pops up in your life. Oh, poor me, this happened. Oh, there was so much traffic. Oh, my boss is a bitch. Oh, whatever the case may be. I don't know what people complain about. But you complain about that, and then you feel better afterwards. And then somebody listened to you and somebody affirmed to you that whatever you were going through was an actual upsetting thing. And they feel good because now they've made you feel good. So they get their little dopamine hit from their compassion that people like to talk about, which just winds up being enabling most of the time. And you feel good because you got something off of your chest. But now the problem that you had still exists. You're still maybe going to get fired from your job, or your boss is still unpleasant, or you still have whatever difficulties with your boyfriend, girlfriend, you're not getting paid enough at work, whatever the case may be, you still have the exact same problem, but you just feel better about the fact that you've complained about it. So you're getting your affirmations and good feelings from the wrong things. And I think that's very normalized. Like even if you watch TV shows or movies or stuff like, I don't know, just regular life shows like Friends or some shit where people would just sit around and complain about stuff and then people laugh about it. They want to be like that. They see, oh, well, this is what they do too. So it's normal for me to be complaining about it. It's good to complain about it. And people even say that too. It's normal to complain. It's okay to complain. Well, why is it okay to complain? Why do you just want to whine about some shit and not actually make it better? And furthermore, why do you feel like that's okay? Do you want to have something to complain about or do you want to have solved problems? Because you can't have both. There's not any complaint in the history of ever that has solved anybody's problem. Nobody has whined about some shit so much that it just went away.
This is very true. And I think I feel like because I was thinking about it, I was like, man, has there been a moment where someone like myself complaining, and then it's all of a sudden it's changed my perspective, it's changed the what happened. It didn't, I come home, I'm very guilty of this, and husbands and fathers, especially you anybody truthfully, well, primarily my men out there, right? You'll understand this. You come home from a long day of work, and you mentioned your boss sucks, and they said this, they did that, right? And you're kind of talking to your wife about it, or your significant other, and you're planning about it, and while doing so, you're only actually getting more upset, similar to how you felt when it initially happened, as if you're
Yep.
reliving what it happening at that very moment. And so all you're doing is reliving that moment over and over, when it's like, you don't have to, right? And don't get me wrong, like it's normal to kind of talk to your significant other about your day and some of the things that frustrated you, but it doesn't need to be a constant, just a you dragging on complaining for hours, right? It doesn't need to be that, right? Because I think, and something that you said, and that definitely made me think is, what are you doing to fix it? Because like, how cool would it be to have an issue, you corrected that issue, whatever the case might be, right? Again, let's go with the flat tire now. So you got a flat tire, you fixed the flat tire within 30 minutes, got on the road, and you were only 10-15 minutes late to work. But guess what? So was your boss, because he was stuck behind a train, whatever the case might be. And so you didn't even get in trouble for being late. And so you're like, man, how much better would it be to be like, hey, I had a problem and I solved it. I don't need to tell my boss because he was, technically late too, whatever the case might be, but I solved the problem. And it feels good that I was able to solve it and correct that action and fix my flat tire. And I actually feel better than, when it initially happened, where I got, if I didn't get a flat tire, it's kind of like, would I feel good like I do now? Would I feel as accomplished and ready to attack my day if I didn't get that flat tire and I didn't fix it myself? And I don't think people for a moment ever think about it that way. I had a moment in my life, and most of my audience knows this. I failed a drug test in the Army, and anyone who fails any drug test, whether you're in the military or not, that's a big deal. And I failed this drug test, and it was a miserable, and I say miserable, just a miserable feeling of like, I let my family down, I let my leadership down, I let my mentors down, I let all these people down, and now there's these consequences that come with that, right? And I got demoted, big deal in the military, or whether in any job really, but like, I got demoted. I had to do what we call extra duty for 45 days. So that means for 45 days straight, I'm basically the sergeant major, the commander say, hey, we need that lawn mowed, go mow that lawn and make sure you spend an adequate time doing it, make it look nice, right? Hey, we need this trimmed edge, go do that. We need these rocks picked up, go do, just BS things, right? But I am really just sitting there in the dumps, in myself, and just like, man, I hate this. This is me. This is all messed up, blase. Fast forward, I start my podcast, and I keep talking to different people, and I feeling really good, and in the conversation, and in one of those conversations, it dawned on me. And what dawned on me was, if I didn't go, well, a couple things, right? One, by failing that drug test, I was able to identify that I was also on the verge of becoming an alcoholic, totally on the verge of becoming an alcoholic. But I would never have been able to confront that if I didn't go through that incident right there. That's one. Number two, if I didn't go through that situation where, where I went through, where it just felt like everything was over and surrounding me, um, you and I wouldn't be talking today. I wouldn't be the person I am today. I wouldn't have this podcast. I wouldn't feel so compelled to feel obligated or have this passion, burning passion to want to improve myself, to do better, to be where I am at, where I am at right now. And I had to go through that situation in life, as unfortunate it is, and it's completely my fault. I tell people all the time, but I had to go through that in order to get to where I am today. And I tell people all the time, God works in mysterious ways, because with man, oh man, I am where I am. I feel like I am on track to be the person, going down the person that I'm meant to be. And I found my calling, and it's weird in a lot of ways to be able to sit there and reflect on a bad thing that happened in your life, to say, without that situation, you wouldn't, the person today, the person that people, when they talk to me, they're like, man, like, you seem really upbeat, happy, or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but I went through this thing to get to here, and if I didn't do that, you wouldn't have the same person. You'd be like, oh my gosh, you're kind of negative Nancy, and you're overweight, and all these things, right? I was 270 pounds at the end of when I was going through all that. 270 pounds. I'm now 220, and I feel great. I run half marathons for my birthday every year. That's my punishment / deal I've made with myself. And I just mentally and physically, I've improved overall, and it feels good. Right. And I'm happy. Last year, 2023, told my wife, even though we went through a lot of things, dealing with the ramifications of what I did, was the best year of my life. And she was like, I don't understand how. I was like, I don't know how to explain it. But I said, there were things that sucked, but like overall, it was the best year of my life. And I wouldn't change it any other way. And I'm on 2024 is almost coming to an end, which craziness to think about. But I'm on the same track where it's like, man, 2024 is better than 2023. I love it. I'm all about it. And I didn't really think about so much about the mindset thing until me and you actually were speaking about it, like how much your mindset does impact what you do and your actions afterwards. So with you and your clients, right? So do you predominantly deal with, do you deal with fathers, mothers, or is it just a verse of different people, or not even fathers and mothers, just male, female? What is it that you predominantly see come across that people who are looking for a mindset coach?
Mostly men, but some women, probably like 70-30 if I had to split it up, 65-35, something like that. Mm-hmm. A mix between parents. I think that a lot of people wind up having children nowadays. I think that children are a large part of the reason that a lot of people wind up wanting to get their life together. So like I have people that talk to me, they want to stop drinking, or they want to stop smoking or something like that. And the kids wind up being a large part of the reason for that, or their marriage or something is suffering because of their random vices.
I totally, it's crazy. One of the reasons I stopped drinking, and I'm not going to say this like I stopped drinking like when this incident happened, right? I definitely was, I had to go sober for 90 days as part of the process, right? But it wasn't until 7-8 weeks ago now that I stopped drinking. And it was a decision that I made because there were a few different reasons, but one of the biggest reason for me was, I didn't like how, I wasn't getting drunk or anything, because I definitely had to stop doing that. But it was, I drink bourbon neat. That's my favorite drink. Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare. Oh man, those things right there, bourbon. That's my favorite. I love it. And so I would, be having my few sips, whatever the case might be, and I'd go to kiss my daughters goodnight, and I could smell the bourbon on my breath. And I hated that. I hated that. Just knowing that, like, if I can smell my breath, they can smell my breath. They know they can smell the bourbon. And I never wanted them to associate bourbon with their dad. I never wanted that. I don't want them to think about like, oh, I know that smell. I'm familiar with that smell because that's what my dad would smell like every single night, or on whatever the case might be. I didn't want to do it. So I didn't think it was going to be a powerful enough a reason why. But man, oh man, it's been 8 weeks and I feel phenomenal. I feel phenomenal. I go into stores and I see it and I'm like, do I have this urge to buy something? And I'm like, truthfully, no, I don't actually have the urge to buy it anymore. It's just kind of like I'm comfortable where I'm at right now, where I don't need it, and it feels good. It feels really good to be at that point. Um, for those parents that you talk to, in particular the dads, are they upfront with you in the beginning, right? Because it can be intimidating to talk to another man, especially if you're a person who doesn't think highly of themselves and you're talking to a person who you perceive has it all together. Is the conversation difficult to begin with? Is there, you can tell they're maybe holding something back, or does the conversation seem seamless?
I think that people, for the most part anyway, at the very least, seem pretty comfortable disclosing stuff. Like I talk often about sobriety, not drinking, not smoking, things along those lines. And the people that I talk to, I spent a while watching me before they reach out to me. So I think that my overall bluntness makes people feel more comfortable being straightforward with me. I think that the idea that you need to project a certain thing kind of comes from how other people carry themselves. So you feel people are being fake or portraying an image with you, that you feel like you have to do the same thing because you don't want their judgment from it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's man, because I only asked that question because I there has been times when I was talking, even talking to my soldiers, and I told them, I was like, hey, just be honest. I was like, I can tell you're holding something back. Just be honest with me. And these are in particular my male soldiers. Um, and there's this, finally they're just like, well, sometimes when I'm talking to you, I feel like I have to search for the right answer. And it's like your demeanor, because how they describe me, this is no way of how I say I describe myself, but they're like, oh, you're just kind of like this all the time, and you just have this look on your face, and I'm just like, I was like, this is my normal look, man. I was like, I'm not trying to intimidate you by any means. I was like, I have a responsibility and I want to talk to you. And I was like, like, you need to be able to feel comfortable saying these things. And a big part of my role inadvertently as a platoon sergeant currently right now is providing that counseling and that mentorship to them, whether it's in a way of its mindset, whether it's a way of its physical, or they need to improve their physical fitness, or just in life general. So it's like I'm a jack of all trades, if you will, when I'm speaking to them, because they come to me with all these different issues. Not to say I'm great at it or anything, I'm doing phenomenal. It's just um just a question of curiosity, because generally, like, when I'm talking to these male soldiers in particular, you can tell there's a sense of them holding something back. And when I finally give them that, hey, just tell me what you got on your mind, like, I'm a regular normal human being, I'm a man just like you're a man, and you can tell me what you got on your mind, like, I need to know that so I can help you. Because if you don't
Mm-hmm.
tell me, if you're not honest, you're not truthful, and especially in the army sense, right? But if you're not honest or you're truthful, I can't help you, right? I can't help you to the best of my ability, and my goal here is to help you. So with your clients and those who have kids and whatnot, do you are you, when you're talking to them, do they say, hey, like, I'm trying to get this, I want to change, right? Because I want to change for my kids, but I also want to teach my kids this, right? Because a lot of, I think, when it comes to the mental shift and changing your mind, is just a demonstration of emotional intelligence. And because a lot of it is reacting, I think, well, how I kind of connect those is because I think of, when someone talks things mental coach or mental anything, it's okay, I react badly to these situations, and I react badly to these situations because of A, B, and C. But I think it shows a lot of maturity and a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to say, hold on, I can control how I react, I can control how I respond, I can control a lot more than I was originally told how to react in these situations, that where I can't control anything, and I shouldn't feel bad because I can't really control anything that's going on around me. But truthfully, the one thing that you can control is you. And the best way, if once you're gonna learn to almost master yourself, it's almost like everyone else is like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't bother me. It is what it is, it's almost, some people are like, well, you just don't care, and it's like, no, I understand how serious that is, but, like, I'm good. I've moved past it. It's something that happened. I can't control what that person did. It's happened, and I'm moving on. I'm moving past it. I'm going. This is where I'm going. So, like, for you, is it like that, or are you able to get a lot? Have you had a lot of success getting your clients to be able to say, not? It's not about not caring, but it's being able to get to the point where you're comfortable and confident saying, like, hey, I care, but it's like it doesn't bother me like it used to.
Yeah, so I agree with what you said there. A lot of people do think it's about a thing of not caring or a degree of coldness, and that's not the point at all. It's a level of A, self-awareness, and B, not situational awareness, but awareness of your situation, in the sense that regardless of what it is that's taking place, you can feel however it is that you want to feel about it, but there's nothing that you can do to change it. And you running around trying to will some shit that you don't like to be different when there's nothing that you can do about it is not going to do anything but drive you crazy. Like, if it's raining, then the rain is falling from the sky regardless of how it is that you feel about it, and it's going to rain until it's done raining. You can scream about that, you can yell about that, you can laugh about that, you can cry about it, but it's going to fucking rain. It doesn't matter. And most situations, or not most, but a lot of situations like that are in life, and that's what people choose to get worked up about. And people have all of these things where I would be in a different position if it was for this or if it was for that. And it's an election year right now, so people wrap it all up in the politics. If this person's the president, then my life is going to be better. If this person's the president, my life is going to suck. But they're putting it all on other people in situations outside of themselves that they can do absolutely nothing about. Some things are just going to be what some things are going to be, and all you can do is respond to that. It's getting people to that level of acceptance to realize the difference between what it is they can affect and what it is that they cannot, and just need to accept and figure out the best way to maneuver around. I think it's the serenity prayer, the grant me the serenity to
Yep.
accept the things I cannot change, and
Yeah.
whatever, and the
Yep.
wisdom to know
To
the difference.
accept.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
essentially that. But people seem to have they like it as a concept where it's like a hypothetical prayer, but then when it comes to applying it in real life, it's a whole different thing. Like there's a lot of things that people intrinsically understand on a very base level, but when it comes to the actual application of it, then it's a problem, and then it sounds a certain way. Like I talk to people all of the time, and they say, well, you don't understand how difficult it is. I was abused as a child. And it's like, okay, cool. That's unfortunate. But no matter how much you cry about it or how upset you are about it now, it still happened. There's nothing that you can do about it. So you can live in the past, or you can do the best that you can now and move forward from it. And specifically when it comes to like trauma type situations like that, if you want to add another layer to it, if you're going to sit there and obsess about it forever, then the person who did these things to you is beating you for the remainder of your life. So do you want to offer up your life to this person who has wronged you in such a way, or do you want to accept a thing that you can no longer do a thing about, accept that it's in the past, and move forward and be the best that you could be currently?
So I want to ask you. So, like, when you say that, right, and like, and I said this in the beginning, right? We you say these things, and I enjoy how you say them, because they're blunt, they're honest, they're straightforward, and it's not like it's not picking sides. It's just like, hey, these are the facts, right? And you can choose to do A, B, C, or D. And if you choose whatever you choose, you have to live with that decision. And that's I just broke it down to you what the facts of the situation are. So, like, but it does sound, and again, this is not me, this is more for the audience sake, but it sounds almost just very coldish. So it's kind of like, well, I want you to understand what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling, and not necessarily validate it, but just tell me that it's going to be okay type thing, but then also tell me, hey, but you can change that, right? Almost sell it to me rather than just tell it to me. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I understand how people come to the conclusion that certain things sound cold. But if you let's take the trauma thing. Okay, well, play it out in the opposite direction. This thing happened to you. You think it's terrible. Okay, I also think it's terrible. You think it's sad. Cool, me too. You think that you can't move forward from this. Cool, me too. So your past sucks and your future's never going to be good, because that's what you're arguing when you sit there and tell me that I'm wrong. I understand the other thing sounds cold, but is that what you want? Do you want your past to have shaped the remainder of your life? Because if not, then you're going to, at a certain point, have to accept it's the past. It's done and it's over with. And it does not have to have any bearings on the decision that you make today. Like, regardless of what it is, good, bad, or benign, what what happened yesterday, who you were yesterday, does not dictate what it is that you need to do today. I used to be a very lazy person. I am no longer a lazy person, because I know that me being lazy yesterday didn't mean that I had to be lazy today. I didn't used to be a morning person. I get up at 3:53 a.m. every single day now, because I know that just because yesterday it was hard for me to get up at 5 a.m., it doesn't mean that that's going to be the case for forever. So my past was sad. Okay, cool. But that was yesterday. What about today? You don't have to be sad about what it is that happened yesterday. You also ate yesterday. Are you still full from that meal? No, because it's a brand new day and you can eat a brand new meal. Let the past go and live in the present. Or fine, cool. Live in the past and be sad forever and live the remainder of your life lamenting what happened to you and crying about it forever, and see how that turns out for you.
Man, you said it in the beginning, and I'll reiterate it here, guys. I think one of the biggest thing is perspective. Man, our perspective on life, on everything, and whether good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is, right? It holds so much bearing on how we go through our everyday, how we interact with other human beings and our relationships in life, and how we interact at work and whatever. But our perspective, that's huge. And it's like unlocking it's unlocking a jewel, right? You've unlocked the treasure, and very few people have it or have this treasure, and you're trying to share this with people. Like, hey guys, no, it's like, I can't believe it. It's that simple. It's really that simple. And there are just people who are like, I would much rather live this way, right? I'm so used to being miserable. It feels better when I'm miserable. I don't know how to be happy, right? Because when I am happy, I'm afraid that my happiness is going to be taken away from me, And so it's just a constant fear. If you're living in this constant fear, when it's like, just change the perspective just a little bit, and it'd be amazing what happens.
So, but that's the thing though. If you are happy, your happiness will be taken away from you. It's fleeting by nature. If you were happy 24/7, you would be happy never. Things only exist to some degree of juxtaposition, right? Like, you appreciate the sunshine if it rains for a week straight. And if it is sunny for a week straight, then you appreciate a rainy day. You appreciate having the opposites. But just like if you watch a movie and it made you laugh for the remainder of your life, that would be fucking miserable. So would being happy every single day for the rest of your life. You can never infinitely be one thing, and that's the whole entire point. And people don't realize that shit. They just decide that they need to be happy all of the time, and anything that is not happiness is a problem. And that's why they have that problem.
So, like I said, it's amazing because the perspective that you have, and it's a great one, and I love it, and I aspire, like, again, this conversation, right? This short conversation that we've had, in my mind, I'm like, hey, I need to figure out, there are some things I need to change, and I need to figure out how to get there. What is it that I need to do? How do I improve it? How do I get there? Because I want to change my mind. And I tell people all the time, like, very selfishly, this is my podcast. And so, like, I talk to certain people for very selfish reasons, so like, I gain a lot from these conversations, and I hope the audience does too. And so I'm also gaining that, so my final question to you, it's not going to be my final, second to last question, but is, how you grew up. Did you have your mom and both your parents in your life when you were growing up?
Yes and no. So my dad was around all the time, but he was always working. Like, for the first 14, 15 years of my life, I think I saw my dad once every 2 or 3 weeks. He'd be out traveling all the time and stuff. I'm not saying that in a bad way. I don't hold it against him. He did what it is that he had to do to be able to provide for stuff. So I'm not saying that's like some sort of slight against him or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I had great parents. I did a lot of stupid shit growing up, but that was because I chose to do stupid shit. I was very much taught better. I just fell into all of the people around me. I grew up Southern California.
Oh, you grew up in Southern California?
Yes, sir.
What part of California?
Altadena, right outside of Los Angeles.
Nice. My parents, or my mom, her and her family grew up in Riverside. So,
okay.
I can tell you with a burning passion, I hate California. And I say I hate California because we spent so much time in California that I'm like, I'm over going to California. I've been there, done that. I'm good. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but I'm good. I don't want to go. I don't want to go to California again.
It
I've seen
it's
it.
very different. It's a very different place than it was when I grew up there. So
Yeah. Oh, yep. I imagine. I imagine so. And so, I was going to ask. So, how long you been in Arizona? Then I won't divulge exactly where, but how long you been in Arizona?
oh man, I've been in Arizona a little over 6 years now.
And was it? Do you feel like it was a great choice? Like you needed that, and like
Yeah, so
it was
I
awesome.
moved here from Charlotte, North Carolina. I lived there for about 11
Oh,
years,
oh, okay.
and then
I was in just outside Raleigh at Fort Bragg in
yep, I'm
Fayetteville.
familiar.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, I lived there for about 11 years, and then I moved out here. So it's cool, man. I'm a fan of it. People complain about the weather, but not that bad. Could be worse. It's hot a
Dry
little bit
heat.
sometimes.
Dry
Such
heat
is
is the
life.
best heat, guys. Dry heat's the best heat.
Way better than the humidity. Yeah. If
Oh
you ever been
yes,
to Alabama or anywhere in the South in the
yes.
summertime, that shit's
Miserable.
crazy. That shit's sticky. That shit hits you in the face. It is wildly unpleasant.
Oh, it's miserable, man. I'm sorry. Quick tangent there, but I asked about your parents and specifically because
Yep.
I wanted to know, like, was this thing, this mindset, this where you are now, or was it ingrained in you at a young age from your parents, from your dad, or was it just kind of something that you just kind of fell upon on yourself?
So I kind of look back on it, and I think that the basis, the makings of it, I got from my dad. His saying was all the time, "It is what it is." My mother would be in traffic and she would get mad about it and yell at the other cars and shit. My dad would be like, "I mean, "It is what it is. You can't do anything about it, so stop yelling about it." I remember whenever we moved to Charlotte, he would sit outside in the summertime. It was hot as fuck. He would smoke one of his cigars, and my mother would ask him how he did it, and he was like, "It is what it is. I want to smoke the cigar. I got to smoke the cigar outside. It's hot outside. Such is life."
That's amazing.
So it's looking back on it, I realized that's probably where I picked a lot of it up from, and then I kind of just built on that.
That's awesome. It's crazy the things we learn from our parents, especially our dads, especially as men, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we learn things from our dads, and a lot of it is subconscious things that we don't know that we're doing or we're mimicking, right? And then you get older and you find yourself being like, that's something my dad would say. Or that's something my dad
Yep.
would do. And whether it's good, bad, and different, right? Like it's weird, right? But like still you're just like, oh man, I learned that from my dad. And
Yep.
these lessons that we learn from our dads, man, they're amazing lessons because dads have an amazing way of teaching you something without sitting you down and saying, I'm teaching you something. You know what I mean? And you learn it and you're like, that's once it hits your brain and it connects and the synapse and everything happens and the connection is made and you're like, light bulb moment, you're like, this makes sense. I get why my dad did. I
Mm-hmm.
get why my dad said what he said. I get it now. It all makes sense. And so it's really powerful. And I tell my wife all the time, I was like, this is how I go. I'm all about lessons because I want to teach my daughters these things. I said, but I can't go about it the way the regular way of just saying, I'm teaching you what being over prideful looks like. No. Let me show you. Right? Let me show you what having too much pride looks like. Let me show you what being bullying looks like, right? And not necessarily like I'm bullying my wife or anything, but like let me show you these things because you learn. I don't want everybody to think I'm bullying my wife. I love my wife; she's safe. um, no, but let me show you these things, right? It's better if I give you an example and not tell you it's a lesson because if I do, then you don't want to receive it, right? Because let's just be
Mm-hmm.
honest, as kids we don't want to listen to our parents. I didn't want to listen to my
That's a
parents.
fact.
And I tell people all the time, my dad was the one who suggested to me and my brother we join the military. And me and my brother laughed in my dad's face. We pulled into the driveway, got out of the car. He was there waiting for us. He said, "Hey guys, just want to talk to you real quick before you go inside. Seeing how things are going with your grades. They're not doing so well, not doing so hot. You guys want to go to college, play ball, whatever the case might be. But you're not putting in the work necessary to get to that level. You don't have that discipline yet to get there. But it doesn't mean you can't. You won't, or you can't. But it's just what I'm seeing right now is." You need to go a different direction. Have you thought about joining the military? Me and my brother straight up were laughing in his face, said, nah, we're not doing that. Right. And this is one of the moments where I think back to where I laughed in my dad's face and he was just like, okay, well, it is what it is. But he knew something that we didn't know. And I tell people all the time, here I am almost 11 years later in the military. And it was because if my dad didn't have that conversation, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here where I am today, and I wouldn't have been able to know all the lessons, or been able to learn the lessons that I learned and have the experiences that I have, because the ultimate experiences, I do believe, shape us who we are, and we could decide those experiences suck and it's just miserable, and we're just gonna constantly live that or shut that door, or we can say, hey, how can I make myself better? What if without that situation I wouldn't be able to recognize that I had a problem. You know what I mean? So it's amazing. It's amazing what happens. It's amazing. So before we go to wrap it all up, what would be a simple piece of advice, right? I'm not trying to get your, get your coaching for free here, right? But what would be a piece of advice that you would have, especially to dads, right? Who have the beer bellies, who are into the drinking too much, who are just into the life is hard. I go to work and then I come home, the kids are hard, blase, blase, right? What do you say to those dads? One piece of advice, if you could give them, would you say to help to kind of just a real quick, hey, this is how you can change your mind and maybe change your life for the better?
So I think the first thing is that the best way to teach is always by example rather than trying to just preach lessons to people all day. So if you want your kids to be a certain way, then you have to be that way as well, because they will pick up on that far more. Like all of the lessons that I'm looking back took from my own dad was not specifically things that he tried to tell me, but things about how he was and how he conducted himself, like his work ethic. He was never like, this is what you need to do. Like I just saw it. And that's something that I took away, or the attitude that it is what it is. You can't control what you can't control thing is something that he just was. And I picked up on that. So the best thing that you can do for somebody is be who it is that you think that they should be and let them learn from you that way. As far as the idea of life being hard in and of itself is not a universal fact. It is a subjective descriptor. So things are only as hard as you perceive them to be. Like you've taken it upon yourself to have and raise children. So if that is a challenge to you, good. Life is absolutely nothing and pointless without challenges. But the level of a challenge it is to you is how it is that you view it. So if you view it as something that's difficult, it's going to be something that is much more difficult than it needs to be. But if you view it as the privilege that it is, same thing for all other aspects of your life, whether that be being in shape, whether that be going to work and being able to provide for your family and to maintain your house, or whatever the fuck your various responsibilities are. All of those things are privileges, because if you take a step back and you view the world from a farther out perspective, there are people in Bangladesh, I don't really know anything about Bangladesh, but who I assume live in really fucked up houses underneath of the ground with no electricity or real doors or something. So however difficult you think your life is, there is always someone who has a much more difficult life. So for you to not make the absolute most of it and appreciate the opportunity to do so is nothing but ungrateful.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it. I'm not going to look, guys, I'm not going to ruin it by saying, something cheesy and tacky, and that would not do what he just said any justice. But, I love it. Where would be the best place for people to find you at? If they want to know more information, where would this be the best place?
Best place to find me, easiest way to contact me is on Instagram, the Jason Lamar. I'm the Jason Lamar on everything else as well, TikTok, YouTube, whatever other various social platforms you could think of.
Awesome.
Very simple.
Awesome. Hey guys, don't worry. All of his stuff will be in the description, social media wise, so you can reach out to him. I highly encourage, a lot of you, especially my new dads, reach out to him, because and change, help with the mindset thing. Because it's amazing if you can learn those lessons sooner. And I call them lessons, but more or less, if you can learn those lessons sooner rather than later, it's amazing how you can propel yourself in your life and that better direction, rather than having to go through those sucky situations. Because a lot of the times of us going through the sucky situations is we put ourselves in that based off of previous decisions that we made. And if you have that insight, if you have someone who can help you and help you change your mindset, I promise you, you won't have to go through half of the other BS that some of these people have to live experience from, rather than just say, nope, mentor, someone told me, hey, I wouldn't go about that way, think about it this way, and now I understand why, and it makes sense. So that's all I got. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you, Jason, definitely coming on. I love everything about what you have to say, and I agree everything you have to say. It was amazing. Again, thank you. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. And of course, this ties in perfectly because I think that's what's all Mediocre Dad's about. Remember, guys, being mediocre is a choice. You have to refuse to be mediocre every single day. That's all I got for you guys. Mediocre Dad's out.
Appreciate you having me, man.